Black Doctors Podcast.
This week on the Black Doctors Podcast, we hear from Dr. Hafia Eltahir, first of two parts in this series. We're going to hear about her story of becoming a physician. She is an otolaryngologist, head and neck surgeon, or ENT physician, practicing in Atlanta. We first met at an SMA conference, and over the last couple of years have been able to see her progress from medical school to and through residency, and now to her current practice as an attending physician. Super inspiring story. We're going to hear the first half of what got her into medicine and what brought her to the field of ENT surgery. And then next week, we're going to talk about diversity. We're going to talk about representation. We're going to answer some tough questions that I've received about picking a residency program. It's February, Black History Month, but it's also a time where shortly medical students are going to be submitting rank lists. And one of the important things that we discuss is how do you choose what program you rank and in what order. Diversity in these programs is a huge issue, and you want to know where you're going. And that you'll be supported in these different programs. So we talk about how she chose her program. The field of otolaryngology is not very diverse. And we talk about in next week's episode how she navigated this and how she ultimately chose her program, how she felt in her program, supported, etc. So definitely tune in to next week's episode as well. I'm also pleased to announce that we are contributing on behalf of Black Doctors Podcast, on behalf of our listeners. We are donating $600 to the Student National Medical Association. Towards the end of last year, we had a little bit of a promotion where if you submitted a review or a rating, we contributed, I think, $5 to each of those that we received. We received about 20 of those. But over the last week or two, we've actually received even more. So we really appreciate the support that you, our listeners, are providing. And in turn, we're going to pay that forward to the Student National Medical Association. They have a promotion running, I think it's $600 for the 60th or $600,000 for 60th. They're trying to raise a lot of money. And that's where the number 600 came from. Not if you do the math, not because of how many reviews we got, but that's a nice round number. It's got a 6 in it. So we're going to donate $600 to the Student National Medical Association. Actually going to run the credit card as I record, right after I record this episode. And because I do procrastinate. But thank you all for your support, and we are going to continue to pay this forward because we believe in this organization and the work that they're doing. It is Black History Month, and I want to highlight a book. It's entitled Legacy. It's by Dr. Uche Blackstock. Now, I was familiar with the name. I know Dr. Uche and Dr. Oni Blackstock. They're both physicians. They're twin sisters, and they're out of New York. And I knew Dr. Uche Blackstock published a book recently, Dr. Tyler Brown. He kind of had it in his stories where he was going around to different bookstores looking for the book. And I don't really read books, so I got it on Audible. I listened to it. I'm about halfway through, actually. I haven't finished the book yet. But I have to highlight this book. If there's anything that you can do to support this, if you want to feel inspired, if you want to learn how to make a difference and what it looks like to make a difference, I highly encourage picking this book up on Audible or buying a copy. So if you don't know, Dr. Uche Blackstock, she's an emergency medicine physician. She is from New York City. She attended Harvard University for college as well as medical school, along with her twin sister. So just an incredibly remarkable family. At the beginning of the book, she highlights the role that her mother played as a nephrologist practicing in New York City, who had also attended Harvard. And she talks about the legacy that her mother started and how growing up, she was able to see the care that she provided for patients, the relationships that her mother built with patients, as well as with other physicians in that hospital, Kings County, I believe, in New York. I think it's in Brooklyn. My good friend Kiana did her OB residency there. So I was able to, I've actually visited that hospital and seen the area. So it really kind of hit home some of the things that she was describing in this book. But she talks about growing up in Brooklyn, being from Crown Heights, her twin sister, Oni, and the incredible things that they accomplished attending Harvard for college as well as for medical school. their mother who became sick with leukemia and passed away, and just continuing her legacy. Throughout this book, she adds in different facts and aspects of healthcare disparities, and she really weaves those into the story that she tells in a way that is just, it's incredible. It kind of really pulls you in and makes you realize and experience and feel what it's like to experience some of these health disparities. As a Black male, I don't directly experience what it's like for maternal healthcare disparities. I've observed this in the maternity wards as I'm doing anesthesia, but the way she describes it is phenomenal, and it really is a rallying cry for us to do better. So I haven't finished the book yet. I'm halfway through and looking forward to finishing that over the week as I commute back and forth from work. So definitely go and check this out, either on Audible or buy it on Amazon or support your local bookstore. 10 out of 10 recommendations so far for Dr. Uche Blackstock's book entitled Legacy. And now we'll jump into today's episode of the podcast featuring Dr. Hafia Eltahir, otolaryngologist and ear, nose, and throat surgeon. I guess it's not and, it's kind of the same thing, but here we go. Hello, welcome back to the Black Doctors Podcast. I am Steven, your host. Today, excited to have Dr. Hafia Eltahir with us. She is an otolaryngologist, aka ENT or head and neck surgeon practicing in Atlanta. Hafia, welcome to the Black Doctors Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Steven. It's been a long time, so I've been watching you and seeing what you've been doing lately with your podcast, and it's very inspiring. I'm very proud of you, proud to know someone that's Black and successful, doing wonderful things. So I appreciate you having me on this show.
And that's the definition of the pot calling the kettle black, because I've done the same. We met at SNMA in Atlanta. We were just reflecting, and you were in medical school leaning towards ENT, yes, as we all have been, nervous about applications and matching. And I just remember, like, when you posted your match and you're going to be an ENT surgeon, and then time flew because you finished, 8, 9, 10, 12 years of surgery residency.
Pretty much. That's what it felt like anyway.
I wanted to dig into your story. Who got into medicine. You are a first generation Sudanese American. Yes. And we're going to talk about your pathway and then talk about this incredible field of otolaryngology.
Starting back to why I decided to go into medicine, your typical story where kids grow up saying they want to be a doctor. Unfortunately, my mom had a lot of health issues as I was growing up. So I saw, her go to the doctor's office a lot. And that was very intriguing to me to see how doctors helped her. Then also my father is a scientist. So I grew up going to the lab and spending time there. So I feel like I was very immersed in the area.
We got to stop. So what kind of scientist was your dad? Because he's from Sudan, and then he came to the States, Alabama, ironically enough. So what type of science did he practice?
Biochemistry. So he's a biochemist. He taught at the university for a while, and then he transitioned over into forensic science. And then he did that for years too, and enjoyed doing that. So I knew I didn't want to be a biochemist. I didn't love biochem that much. But I really enjoyed it, and I've always enjoyed helping people. And so I wanted to find a way where I could do that, and also in a way where I could, be in direct contact with patients as much as I could. So that's the reason why I chose to go this route. I took the very non-traditional route. So went to undergrad, graduated from the University of Alabama, Roll Tide. And then after graduating, life was happening. So things came up. So I actually worked for a while as a banker for Regions Bank, and was in a management role for a while. And I just hated it. And because I knew I always wanted to be a doctor, I spent that time really trying to work on my MCAT score. And what I wanted to do was try to remain as immersed in the medical field as I possibly could, so that I didn't forget while I was working and also handling some life things at that time. So I dedicated my evenings after work. I would go downtown and I volunteered at a free health clinic called Empower Ministries. And so, care was completely free for all the patients that presented. And I was very passionate about that. But it also opened the door for me to network with a lot of doctors there too, and pick their brains. And there were a few other students that were at the University of Alabama at the time that were doing some volunteer work there. And It was motivational because a few of them were also looking to go into the medical field as well. So it was just a great networking opportunity. So someone referred me to spend time with this one neuro-ophthalmologist that was at the university. And he apparently is just very open to having students come and shadow him. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna reach out. Sent him an email. He was very open and welcoming, invited me to come spend some time. And I did so. And I was like, okay, this really confirms it. But he was a DO, very successful, but I didn't know what a DO was at the time. I was like, what is that? And he explained and was like, but do your own research, look into it. It's whichever route you want to go, allopathic or osteopathic, it's up to you. So at that time, I really thought I might want to do primary care. So I applied to DO programs, got accepted. But it wasn't until after my first year of medical school, I shadowed an ENT who was actually one of my clients when I worked at the bank, who had told me after I got accepted, hey, if you ever need anything, don't ever hesitate to call. And the beautiful part of it all is that he's Black.
No way.
And he owned his own practice. And so...
And you knew he was making money too.
Yeah, I knew he was making money. I saw that. And he was always just such a nice guy, just a very nice guy.
What was his name?
His name was Dr. Gardner.
Okay. Shout out Dr. Gardner in Alabama.
Yeah, Birmingham, Alabama. Very nice guy. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I took care of you at the bank and you gave me your information. Now I'd like to spend some time with you if I can. I have this summer off and I want to do something meaningful with my time. So he said, oh, yes, you can spend as long as you want. I actually ended up spending a whole month with him.
Oh, wow.
Just, going to the office, going to the OR with him. And I was like, this is just amazing. I loved, what he did. I love the variability in the day, being in the office, going to the OR. Sometimes we go back to the office and then back to the OR. One time we had a tonsil bleed. So I was like, this could be exciting. But then he also talked to me about how he enjoyed his lifestyle. He has a family. He had 2 daughters. He was able to make it home at night for dinner with them. He was able to make it to certain extracurricular activities. And so I was like, I really think this is for me. And he was a nice surgeon. They talk about surgeons are mean.
Wow.
And he was such a nice surgeon. So I was like, I think this is it. So I decided I want to be an ENT. And I didn't know how to go about doing that. I even reached out to you when you were in Chicago. I was like, hey, I really want to go and get into ENT. Do you know of someone in,
Yeah, did I help you with that?
You talked to someone. I don't recall the name of the person you spoke to, but...
Probably Dr. Blair. She was my mentor in Chicago. I was like, I think you did. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah. And you were like, these are the things that, he or she recommends. And, this is how you want to perform on your step exams. So being a DO, I had to apply, or I had to sit for not only the USMLE, but also our exam, the COMLEX. So lots of studying, lots of stress, because my school honestly they had lots of resources when it came to primary care. Mm-hmm. But when it came to some of your more specialized areas, especially ENT, they didn't have that for me. So I had to go looking for it. The mentorship, who could I shadow? How to go about really sprucing up my application, things of that nature. And so it was a tough journey, especially being a Black female. Yeah. And then Dr. Gardner, even though he was great to work with and he opened my mind and enlightened me when it came to ENT, he was so far removed, he's like an old head. So it wasn't like, he's like, oh, it's so different now. And so he didn't have a lot of advice that he could provide. But I spent several months doing audition rotations or sub-Is, basically.
Yeah. How many did you do?
Oh, I think I did 7 or 8.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So It was like my school and some of the programs would let us split it up where we could do 2 weeks instead of a whole month. So that's why I was able to get so many of them in. But I was traveling.
Yeah.
It was exhausting.
Hustling.
I was hustling.
Living out of, how were you living?
Oh my gosh, out of my car. I was literally different programs had housing available. Oh, this resident is renting out their basement. So I stayed in residence homes and, there were times it was not the most comfortable situation ever, but I survived. And
I look back at some of those things. I'm like, how did I pay for some of that stuff? I don't even know.
the student loans that I'm having to pay back now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it was tough. It was tough. And so now that I'm in a position where I feel that I'm able to help people if they need it, I really want to take the opportunity to do that if I can, because I know how tough it was to do it on my own, especially, like I said, as a minority in a field that doesn't really have many of us.
Yeah, there are not a lot of us in ENT. And I know since you finished your training, you're a little more active on social media. So you got to shout out your socials and where people can follow you and see what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm really only on Instagram. So my professional page is Dr. E_ENT. So Dr.E_ENT.
Gotcha. For Eltahir. And we'll put that link in the show notes. So awesome. Definitely follow Dr. Eltahir and see what she's up to. Yeah. So it's been a couple months since you finished. First, we were talking about away rotations. And then there is the match process, which is still probably painful memories of going through and waiting. And I think people are starting to, this will air in February and people are going through that right now. But once you matched, then, you started again uphill because you had 7 years residency?
No, 5 years.
Five. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't let me add
you're putting us there with the neurosurgeons. They do 7.
So, but 5 years of surgery. Yeah. So what was that like? Because you matched in New Jersey, Rutgers. So you moved away from family.
Yeah. It was actually a very wonderful experience for me. And it was also challenging at the same time. So it was my first time being that far away from family. But, I felt like I developed one there. The building that I lived in, I met friends. I became very close with my co-residents, especially the ones in my class. They're super supportive. Anytime I needed anything, they were there. So, that definitely helped. But what was very challenging was COVID, because COVID hit during my second year, the second half of my second year residency. And then so when everything shut down, you can't travel. I didn't have anyone there, with me. And then, my family's so far away. So, I'm constantly every day worried and paranoid. Is this going to be the day that I find out that it's my dad or, my mom or my sister or someone who I truly love and care about? Are they going to, get sick? And then I'm stuck here. I may not even be able to go and see them. And then I was working in the COVID ward. They, put us there. So just like I was thinking about them, I was also worried about myself. And so it was definitely a tough time being away during those.
Yeah, because y'all were doing the COVID trachs.
Oh, yeah. A whole hazmat suit, everything. Yeah, you're in there burning up. You want to rip it off, you can't. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we were definitely doing the COVID trach. So good experience. I don't ever want to do it again.
Yeah.
Go through that again, but it was good.
I did as an anesthesia intern, I did a month of ENT. That's how I met Dr. Blair, who, I'm closer with than some of my anesthesia attendings. But, I remember my one trach story. I did a couple of trachs and I was scrubbed in. I was just an intern. And Ryan Salvador, he was the chief resident. And, I read up about, I was pretending to be a surgeon and I read about, the vertical incision or horizontal. And he's like, all right, you're going to do this trach as primary surgeon. I'm like, cool. And he's okay, doctor, here's your Bovie. And he hands me the Bovie, which is the little electrocautery tool. And it was at that moment I realized, because I'd seen Bovies throughout medical. It's got 2 buttons on it, blue and yellow. And when he handed it to me and he was like, oh, hit cut, I had to stop. I was like, so Ryan, which one of these buttons does what?
Hey, at least you stopped to ask, right?
Yeah. I was like, yep, surgery is not for me.
For you.
Oh, gosh. But so for the 5 years of residency, do you on different rotations and there's general surgery stuff? Like what was your residency like?
So during my first year, I was on different rotations. We actually did 6 months of ENT and then 6 months of off rotation. So ICU, I did plastic surgery rotation, neurosurgery, general surgery, had to do 2 months of general surgery. So we did those off rotations. And then the other months, and it was all it wasn't 6 months straight of ENT and then 6 months. So, it every month was basically different. And then after my first year, it was just ENT. And every program, of course, is set up differently. But the way that we do it is we covered 5 different hospitals. So we were at different hospitals. It wasn't, unless we were doing otology, like neurotology was its own like block or like month or 2 rotation at a time. But then the other ones were random. So it all depended on how your chief resident assigned you. So one day you could be doing, rhinology, skull base, and then the next day you're doing head and neck and taking out thyroids, or in the same day you're doing both. So it was variable. Those last 4 years.
And then you had some ped stuff. I know the ped ENT is always a lot of fun.
Yes. So we did peds, and that was definitely fun because the main ENT surgeon we worked with, Dr. Levitt, he's just, he's good to work with. He always keeps the light, but it was like we were like running a machine. He'd run 2 rooms, and I think the most cases I had in one day, I did 21.
Ooh.
Yeah, done by 3:00.
Ooh, anesthesia was moving.
Oh yeah, they were moving. It's crazy. Yeah. So those are fun times.
Yeah. And now it's over. So you recently finished the job hunt. So how was that experience for you? You're finishing up residency. You're interviewing for your big girl jobs. What was your experience?
It was actually pretty good. I knew that I wanted to be back closer to family. So, having that idea already in mind made it easy to figure out exactly, okay, I know I'm going to only look in this area or in this state. So decided to come back south. So here in Atlanta, Georgia, I looked online and I actually ended up going through a recruiter, which I didn't realize I was going through a recruiter at first. I thought I was contacting the office that I work for now directly. But anyway, I interviewed at like only 3 places because it was during my chief year. So I was like really busy. And so it was difficult to make those trips back and forth. So I interviewed at 3 places. It was just the experience the interview experience, I guess I should say, and the feel that I got for the practice that I'm now working for. They offered everything that I wanted. They were really easy and laid back when it came to even just negotiating the contract. I didn't feel pressure. There was one location where I just felt, it was like they wanted me to sign like right away. And it just is a lot. So I was like, this is my first time. Like, I need to take time. I need to get an attorney to look over the contract and all of that. And the group I work for now is like, oh yeah, go get your attorney. Take as much time as you need. And when I was negotiating things that I wanted, they were very receptive. And then I just spent a little time at the office and people seemed to get along really well. And it felt right, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So when did you interview? Because you're in your chief year, you're finishing up in June or July. So when were you starting to go on interviews?
I actually interviewed September of 2022. So I interviewed and signed my contract a year before I started work.
Oh, Lord.
It was during my chief year. Yeah, fall.
Nice. So plenty of time to negotiate and get settled.
Yes.
How's it been?
It's been great. Life outside of residency is great. I feel like a human being now, getting more sleep and spending more time with family. I feel, of course, in residency, you miss out on a lot just because you're so busy and you're dedicating your time. And now I can make it to different functions and things. So that's really great. And I enjoy what I do. I'm enjoying seeing patients. It was a steep learning curve just because my residency was we were just all in the OR. Like the last 4 years, almost 3-4 years, primarily in the operating room all day long. So the only time I did office was when I was at the VA. And so now I'm mostly in the office seeing patients.
Wow.
Yeah. So very different. And then I have OR days and, times like sprinkled in every week. So like I operated yesterday, I have a surgery tomorrow, but I was in the office all day today.
And are you at the same hospital operating or do you do different surgery centers?
Different. So our practice owns a surgery center that's located in the building of our main office, where our main office is located. So we just go straight downstairs and our surgery center is there.
Oh, nice.
So we have the option to schedule patients there. I also operate at a nearby hospital, Northside. And then there's a children's hospital of Atlanta that I can take patients to. And then we have another surgery center. It's a Northside affiliate, and they have a surgery center that I can operate out of too.
Yeah. It's always interesting because residency prepares you for whatever practice you have at your residency program. Then you get into real life and you're like, okay, this hospital, my current hospital, we only do oncology patients. So I don't have the sick cardiac, I don't do trauma, or your situation where you're in the office a lot. So it's always fascinating.
Yeah. And so it's very different. I'm enjoying it. But when you're just so focused on operating every single day and you round on your patients, you operate, you're seeing consults, but now it's the things that you don't really think about having to really work up when you're in residency. Like a lot of patients come in with ear complaints. They have ringing in their ears. Patients aren't coming to the emergency room, or you're not getting consulted anyway as a resident for ringing in the ears. It's definitely like an outpatient, like office sort of thing. So seeing a lot of that, a lot of sinus stuff, which is great because I love doing sinus surgery. So I don't mind seeing those patients, but it's different, but in a good way. Life has been much better.
That's awesome. If people wanted to see you with their ringing in their ears and sinus problems, and they're in the Atlanta area, or just want to come to Atlanta and get their work done, how can they get a hold of you?
So my office, I'm a part of a practice called North Atlanta ENT and Allergy. We have 3 different locations. One's in Alpharetta. So this is all Metro Atlanta, Alpharetta. There's Cumming location and Dawsonville. And I'm primarily in the Cumming and Dawsonville location. So if you look up my name, Hafia Eltahir, you can find me there, and you can either call to schedule an appointment, or there's an option to schedule an appointment online too.
Yeah. Tell them you heard about her on the Black Doctors podcast. There's no discount, but it'll make us all feel good.
Thank you.
So, Hafia, we have to dig into a couple of things. One question I get often, I have a couple of mentees, and as we're recording this, it's the end of January. They're starting to pencil in their rank list. And what always comes up is, I want to go into this specialty. I'm worried about certain programs because I look online, there is no diversity. There's no Black people in the program. I don't know if I want to be the first, the only. I don't know if that's me. And I know what I've counseled people, but I'm curious as to your thoughts, because you are an African-American woman going into a very homogenous field, shall we say, with ENT, surgical field, so white male dominated. How did that affect you as you were looking at ENT programs?
It's a really good question. I think for me, if I will say that I did have one person of color, a Black person in our department, and that was our vice chairman. So, but he was the only. So there wasn't a Black female in our department. It was just me. And as far as residents.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Tune in next week to listen to how you can kind of choose a residency program, or if you're looking at a job, how does diversity affect the decision you make, and what role does it play in your success at that institution, at that program, at that school? Thanks for tuning in. We're here because representation matters.